Let's dive
We
in.
know the Boston Celtics. Now, who was your pick in the finals?
I had the Dallas Mavericks in 7. So couldn't have been more wrong.
I had them in 6. You could have been more wrong, like me. I had them in 6. So, but obviously the Celtics take them out in 5. And here's the question I want to throw at you, Martin, because the analytics say one of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen. So I want to ask you, and we know that the Celtics are going to extend, and rightly so, I believe, Jayson Tatum, give him a 5-year, $315 million contract extension that will be the biggest contract in the history of the NBA. You got any issues with that?
No, I don't have any issues with it. I think that when you watched the finals, obviously Jaylen Brown had the bigger first 2 games. I think they were pretty neck and neck in the final 3 games, skipping game 4 where Boston just, elected not to show up that day.
Right.
But in games 3 and games 5, I think Tatum and Brown played at about even level.
And Tatum had 30 in those games, 30 and 31.
But I think Brown's defensive impact too kind of boosts him, even though his scoring was a little less. But ultimately, I don't have any problem with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown getting paid in that level because they've shown that they are, at least over this season especially, that they showed that, look, we can be the best 2 players on a champion. We can be the best 2 players on a team that can compete.
No doubt.
So I don't have a problem with it. And I also think that now that the monkey is off of their backs a little bit, I think they'll play better in the postseason going forward.
Well, that leads me into my next question for you. Do you think they are more likely, these Celtics, to be a dynasty or a one-and-done championship team?
Now, I believe me and you define dynasty in the same way. You got to get 3.
Yes.
You got to get 3.
You're not, look, the Heat that won 2 in a row with LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh, the Pistons, who I know you love, who won it with Isaiah Thomas in 89 and 90, and the Houston Rockets with Hakeem Olajuwon, who won it in 94 and 95. Not dynasties. Maybe if you want to call them mini dynasties, but not full-fledged dynasties. So, yeah, it's going to take 3 to get you to be a dynasty.
I have to go. They are more likely to be one and done than dynasty. But I do think that right now they are the deserving and obvious favorite for next year. But when you look at the last 10 years of NBA Finals, right? The last 10 years of NBA Finals.
The last 6 have been new champions.
Right, but
6 years, yeah.
Yeah, so the last 6 years have been new champions. Last team to go back-to-back was Golden State. And so I'm just the way the league is now, and I don't know why exactly he was talking about it before Game 4 of the NBA Finals, but Joel Embiid had a pretty good point in that the second apron is going to make it a lot harder for teams to be able to bring back all their talent. And so, they're going to have to improve along the margins, as they have shown an ability to do, right? This season, they obviously improved around Tatum and Brown, but what happens when Drew Holiday is another year older? What happens when now Derek White is getting paid? Like you said, Jayson Tatum is about to get paid. How much stomach does the owner have to foot that bill?
Right.
Is going to be the reason why I have to say they are more likely to be one and done than dynasty. But I also
remember they do have everybody back for next season.
And that's part of the reason why ultimately I think they get next year's. I would have them be the favorite. So you got them repeating? I have them repeating. I mean, as of now, 3 days after the NBA season ends, I have them repeating. And a big part of that is look at the East. Look at the East. I mean, I
think the East when healthy isn't bad.
But
it's not as good as the West, but it's not. If Philly, and remember, Philly's got the room to add. I mean, they're going to go for Paul George. They've got the room to add a top player or maybe 2 top players, right, to add to Joel Embiid if he's ever healthy. And that's really their biggest question. I think now, if they're healthy, they're like a legit contender, but Embiid is never really 100% or close in the playoffs. And obviously you've got Tyrese Maxey, who's just getting better and better. And then Milwaukee, if Milwaukee's blood isn't boiling, then I don't know that y'all should be playing. Because, I mean, you must be looking at Boston like, number one, we see our man Drew Holiday went there and got a chip. And whether it's fair or not, people are going to look at Damian Lillard and say, man, they got y'all got the worst end of the deal. And so Damian should be upset and ready to roll. Giannis should be ready to roll. And then you've got the young upstarts. I mean, the Knicks probably will end up bringing back Randall and the group mostly as currently constituted. And look, they were 14-2 or 12-2 right after OG Anunoby signed with Julius Randle healthy. So it's not clear because some people think Randle can't work with Brunson now, but no, it worked when they were healthy. And so the Knicks will be a factor. The Pacers are just getting better because they're very young. Boston's the clear favorite in the East for sure. I'll give you that. But I'm just saying, it might be a big if, unfortunately, but if some of these squads are healthy, I think they can give them certainly a much tougher challenge than they did this year. And then there's Miami, which always is tough if they're healthy.
Yeah, a tougher challenge. Chris, they only lost 3 games in 4 rounds.
Man, they played 3. I mean, look, I take nothing away from them because of the way they ran through Dallas. But I'm not going to sit here and shout from the rooftops, this was such a great run through the East. It was a great run through Dallas. The East, come on, Miami without his best player. Cleveland without his best player for much of the series. And it's one of its other all-stars, Jared Allen. And Indiana, Tyrese Halliburton banged up.
To me, the team that benefited,
not what's going to happen next year.
The team that benefited through all those injuries to me is the Pacers, because I thought the Pacers should have lost to the Bucks if Giannis and Dame Lillard were both playing. I thought that we would see Milwaukee advance out of that first round.
Because remember, the Pacers had their way with Milwaukee in the first during regular season.
Out of all those teams in the East, the only one that really moves me is the Knicks. With the Knicks bringing back Randall, I think that they
move you more than Milwaukee.
They do.
Wow.
Think about what's happened to Milwaukee since their championship. They're on their second coach. Fired Budenholzer, and then fired Adrian Griffin, and then again, Joel Embiid again made the point on Twitter. Did Giannis's fear or Giannis's anxiety and basically forcing the trade to get Damian Lillard, did that give Boston the championship?
How good was Drew? Now, Drew was a big help for Boston, no doubt. But how much of a help was he to Milwaukee last year?
He was a huge help, but what I'm saying
really?
is...
when they got beat in the first round against Miami and Jimmy Butler had his way with him?
No,
Drew Holiday is great, but he wasn't great from Milwaukee his last year there. He shot poorly in the first round when they got beat by Miami, and he couldn't do a thing with Jimmy Butler and what is his calling card defense. So Milwaukee was like, okay, he's a bit, he's on the latter side of his career. Now, they didn't think he was going to end up, obviously, in Boston, but still, I'm just saying some of his fit, and he's a perfect fit in Boston. He doesn't have to do nearly as much. He can offensively. This was his lowest scoring season in nearly a decade, 12 points a game.
Right.
And so he's a good fit, but I'm just saying Milwaukee needed some more offense because Giannis obviously can't be the go-to guy because he can't shoot jumpers or free throws. Chris Middleton is banged up half the time and is not like an A-level player as good as he is.
That's the quiet part out loud to me. They got the place where Milwaukee should have improved.
Dame's their second guy.
Well, but the place where they should have improved, in my opinion, is over Chris Middleton. Because Chris Middleton has never been, like you said, a top-of-the-line guy. He happened to be the guy that was there taking the last shot oftentimes because he could create his own in a better way, or create his own jump shot than Giannis was able to. But to me, when I sit and watch that team, even with Damian Lillard currently constructed, they still need a wing. A wing.
Well, they do. They need some athleticism. They need
when you say Drew Holiday who's playing in the perfect role, part of that is because they got 2 apex wings in Boston and Tatum and Brown that allow him to do a little bit less, right? So if they had improved over instead of being star chasing after Damian Lillard, what they needed to do was find a wing player upgrade over Middleton. I still think that all the offensive problems that they had still exist.
Yeah, I'm not
Damian
ready
Lillard's just a year
how
older.
can they exist with Lillard's that much better than Drew offensively? Offensively, not
offensively,
defensively.
sure. But I think defensively, there's a massive drop-off, which makes a big difference. And, in terms of and then you look at a guy like Brook Lopez. I mean, Brook Lopez is my age.
I'm not saying they're going to beat Boston, but I'm saying they will be tough. Boston's road will be much tougher next year than it is this year. We'll continue this, though, because we got some more talk about whether or not they can be a better whether or not they're more likely to be a dynasty or a one and done. Martin, we're talking about whether or not these Celtics, who are about to extend Jayson Tatum with a well-deserved 5-year, $315 million contract, which will make him the highest paid player in the history of the league. And that's just the way things work. We all know. Last year it was Jaylen Brown, right? Biggest contract in NBA history. Right. Now it's Jayson Tatum, and next year it'll be somebody else. That's just how it works. But look, they delivered the championship. It's an easy decision. But here's the thing. And look, they may repeat, because we're not so much asking can they repeat. They can. I'm not saying they will. I think my gut right now, at least right now, is that they won't. And they're a great team. And they obviously had a fantastic season. One of the most dominant seasons ever. I don't think they're one of the best teams ever, but it was definitely one of the most dominant seasons all the way around. But, Martin, when you look at the teams that have repeated as champions, one thing that they all have in common is like a top 15-ish player of all time. George Mikan, now that's going way back to the beginning of the league. Bill Russell. Then you went about 20 years before Magic and Kareem did it with the Showtime Lakers. Then it started happening regularly, but Isaiah Thomas, who obviously is a legend and around that top 15 range, I think the second best small player ever to Steph Curry. Then Jordan, of course. Then Olajuwon and a Jordan again. Then Shaq and Kobe, two of them. Then Kobe with Powell. Then LeBron with D-Wade and Bosh. And then Steph with Kevin Durant. Like, as good as Tatum and Brown are, and they're future Hall of Famers, they ain't in that class, Martin. And I think you agree with me.
Right now, sure, but Jayson Tatum's only 26 years old. And when you look at some of the numbers that, if you look at his career compared to other young people who kind of took the league by storm when they were younger, like a guy like Kobe or so on, his numbers are right up there. He's got the most playoff points by a player before turning 27, right? Played in, I think it was 100. At one point this season in the finals, it was 108 playoff games played with him and Jaylen Brown together. So I think maybe he's like 110 right now along that point. So he's got tons of experience. And just think about some of the people that he's passing up. That's Kobe, that's LeBron, and neither one of those guys did a year in college, right? So they came into the NBA right out of high school, where Jayson Tatum had to spend that year at Duke. So am I saying that he's at a Kobe or LeBron level right now? No. But if you continue to win.
You actually think he can get to like a top 15-ish all-time? Because he, to me, is, and I'm a Tatum fan. I've been defending him throughout these playoffs and finals because I think people have been going at him too hard. But he is not, forget Kobe and LeBron and guys like that. He's a slight tick below the best players today. And it's only a few of them. I'm talking about Jokic, Luka, and Giannis. Do you think he's in that group? I think he's right below that group.
He's below that group. But what I'm saying is if he continues to win, if they continue
to keep winning, sure.
You see what I'm, but if you keep winning, even if his individual game is not at the level of some of those guys, he will be considered in that group because of the winning. That's the thing that's the thing that's hard for me to square, because he's had so much people, I don't say hating is too aggressive, but so many people who downplay his ability at this point because he hadn't won a title. And like he said, I mean, he was copying off of Steph Curry after the finals, but like what he said, what are they going to say now? So now this is the conversation. What are they going to say now is, well, is he a top X player of all time? Is he a top 10 player of all time? 15 player of all time?
That's far. That's way way below, away from where we're. I think right now, if you want to say, does he have anything left to prove? Obviously, he's got other goals. He can shoot for MVP, more championships and stuff. But he's proven he can be the best player on a championship team. As good as Brown is, I think Tatum still is their best player. But he can prove that he can play his best basketball in the finals. That's what some people want to say. And remember, they had those questions about Steph until he was finals MVP in his 4th championship. And I'm not hung up on finals MVP. But he hasn't been as good as he can be in the finals.
I think if Jayson Tatum comes out and he plays like he did in Game 5 for an entire playoffs, he will skyrocket the ranks. Like he will climb the ranks like he's going on an elevator.
Tatum?
Because I do. Like if he comes out and because here's the thing. I mean, realistically speaking, when you look at the finals in particular, it wasn't that he was playing poorly across the board. He just couldn't hit a shot to save his life.
No, he played good, strong floor games. He just couldn't make baskets, and that's what I was saying in his defense. Let me shout out Michael Holley, who is one of the greatest reporters Boston's ever seen. He hit me up with Isaiah is not top 15. I expect that from a Boston, he's not from Boston, but a Boston guy when talking about the Pistons.
You're not going to hear me say anything bad about Isaiah Thomas. I got Isaiah Thomas. Look, just because he didn't meet the criteria, but you know what I'm saying?
The analytics don't like Isaiah. The analytics don't like Kobe either, to be quite honest. And
that's
so
okay, because YouTube
that's
exists,
where
so we
you
can
got
see
some
it.
of these guys, rewriting things.
You can go
Isaiah would tell you this, and he's right. The only player ever to go through who beat Bird, Magic, and Jordan more than they beat him. That's pretty good.
I mean,
that's pretty good.
You want to say he's not top 15? Look at your wins and losses matter, right?
Check his stats, as LeBron would say on his T-shirt.
Exactly.